On that fateful Tuesday of 27th October 1987, when Operation Lalang was launched, people began to disappear, mostly in the stealth of the night, in unmarked police cars.
For the first time in 30 years, a documentary about Operation Lalang in 1987 will be published for all to see. The man who made the documentary is Dave Anthony, the husband of Lim Chin Chin, one of the detainees of Operation Lalang.
Well, the situation was at that time still rather tense and sensitive. So besides that, there was no outlet for me to send this out. At that time, we did not have Malaysia Kini or KiniTV, through which this could have been released. So as a result, we just sat there gathering moss all these years.
Dave Anthony is a writer who witnessed his wife taken into preventive detention as the dragnet swept over when Operation Lalang took place in 1987. 30 years ago, a meticulously crafted plan was put into action by the Royal Malaysian Police. Over 100 people were detained in the mass arrests of Operation Lalang. Whether or not it was the objective of the operation, a climate of fear came over Malaysia and passively haunted the thoughts of those who wanted to speak out. This was in the middle of Dr. Mahathir Mohamad's reign as the fourth Prime Minister of Malaysia. Widely accused for being an authoritarian leader, the media and freedom of expression was kept on a short, tight leash.
Oh yes, it was rather authoritarian and repressive, and people were scared. The Sedition Act was still in force then. See? So in some ways you must say that there's a bit more freedom now than it was then. The very fact that Malaysia Kini can exist and broadcast itself is a sign that there is much more freedom of information now than it was before.
Anthony ran his own production house during that time, and with these events unfolding before him, he decided to put his skills and equipment to use in capturing what some believe to be a turning point in Malaysia's political history.
Well, I was running a production house then, doing kind of documentaries, commercial documentaries, and documentaries for NGOs and on issues on human rights and so on. So this was a very topical issue for me to tackle at the time. So I wanted to put it on record of what happened and why it happened and how people were affected. I was covering as much of the related events at the time, including when there was a split in UMNO and Tunku Razali and his B team broke away. Well, I did a lot of video coverages for them then. See, so I've been covering a lot of video coverages, so I have a large bank of footages and I was able to draw from that to compile this document. One thing about the thing is we were on the outside and they were on the inside, and we didn't know what was happening inside and they did not know what was happening outside. So I remember that when Chin Chin, my wife, was detained for the first 60 days, we were not allowed to visit her. So I kept asking the Special Branch permission to go and visit, and they kept denying it. So once I told them, I'm going to Reuters to publicize this, saying that she's being tortured. The next day I got the visit.
Anthony's wife, Lim Chin Chin, was one of the 4 ladies who were given detention after the Internal Security Act's 60 days of solitary confinement lapsed. She was taken to the Kamunting Detention Centre in Perak, where she and all the other detainees were allowed more regular visits. Outside the walls of the detention centre, Anthony and the relatives of the other political detainees gathered regularly for support and solidarity.
Also, another thing that happened is the detainees' families got together and formed a support group, a family group. And that was very good. We all grew very close to each other. We were empathetic, sharing each other's problems, and that brought us together. And we met regularly. And I also produced a newsletter to circulate among the family members. Each month I brought out one of this to update the members of what's happening, and that kept in touch. And it created great rapport and support for each other, mutual support, to go through this period.
Even being on the outside of the detention center was not a free pass for Anthony. There were obstacles he faced too.
Not threatened once when I was persistent, they dug up my history, because in Ipoh once I had an incident in the church where I was beaten up by some parishioners. I made a police report, and it was forgotten. I didn't pursue that anymore. Then all of a sudden they brought that up here at this time, asking me to go to the police station in Ipoh and make a statement, a call to report there, to answer to what's happened then. This was long gone and forgotten and finished, and they dug it up just to frighten me. So I consulted the lawyer, actually, who was Sivarasa. I consulted him, and Sivarasa said, just ignore him. So I didn't go. Nothing happened.
With Operation Lalang seeing its 30th anniversary this year, Anthony decides to release his documentary for the very first time.
Hopefully it will create a better awareness and understanding of our history, and with that hindsight knowledge, to hope for a better future, and how we can, just as they had preventive detention then, what we could do now to prevent such things happening again.
Watch the Operation Lalang documentary this Friday at KiniTV.com.